So Donald Trump has now gone about a month without taking questions from reporters. He's been almost completely missing from the public eye. And last Friday, he finally did a so-called press conference. Now, I say so-called because he could have really pre-recorded it and just played a video. He took no questions. There was no interaction whatsoever with the press that was actually in the room. The event was supposed to be about his work on prescription drug prices, and Trump somehow managed to hold it together for the first few minutes. And then he just couldn't. And you can see him trying to resist. But in the middle of reading from his notes about prescription drugs, he goes off script and he blurts out that he actually won the election. Now, as a reminder, he didn't win the election. He lost by quite a bit. The entire event goes completely off the rails from there. Let's look at it. Here is Donald Trump mid-sentence about Big Pharma running ads against him. And he just loses it and blurts out that he won.
This is not an easy thing to do. Big Pharma ran millions of dollars of negative advertisements against me during the campaign, which I won, by the way, but, we'll find that out. Almost 74 million votes. We had Big Pharma against us. We had the media against us. We had big tech against us. We had a lot of dishonesty against us. But Big Pharma alone ran millions and millions of dollars in ads. In fact, I looked at it. I said, who is it?
I won, by the way. I had dishonesty against me. It's truly embarrassing at this point. It's actually been embarrassing a really long time. He just cannot control himself. I won, guys. I won. Really, I did. Believe me. It's to some degree like he's trying to convince himself that he won. A few other strange moments. Here is Donald Trump saying he's been loyal to special interests. I don't know if this is a Freudian slip or if Donald Trump thinks it means something different than what we think it means to say you've been loyal to special interests. I don't know, but take a listen to this.
Lawyers, lobbyists, and bought and paid for politicians. But I've been loyal to the special interests. I've been loyal to our patients.
Yeah, so it's unclear if Donald Trump knows what that means or understands that typically you don't want to admit to being all about the special interests, loyal to special interests in politics. But who knows? It's Trump. It could be a Freudian slip. He might not understand what it means. He might be honest. He might be glad about being loyal to special interests. I don't know. Trump then also just can't get away from the me, saying we are only this close to vaccines because of him. And in saying this, he, instead of saying Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, he says FISA, which is something else altogether, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's just a mess.
I was put here to do a job, and FISA and others we're way ahead on vaccines. You wouldn't have a vaccine if it weren't for me for another 4 years because FDA would have never been able to do what they did.
Now, in fact, the FDA hasn't really done anything yet on vaccines. I hope people understand this. Private companies and universities have been developing vaccines. The FDA, in a couple of weeks, is going to meet, along with some independent panels, and they will look at the data from these companies, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Oxford AstraZeneca is moving ahead very quickly, and they will decide in December whether these vaccines should get emergency use, as we've already discussed. So this is weird, and it's even getting stranger and stranger as it goes on. Donald Trump remaining very conspiratorial, suggesting that news of a coronavirus vaccine receiving approval after the election was part of the conspiracy to bring him down, that they could have announced this before the election, but it might have helped him. They didn't want to help him, so they waited. Take a look.
Their vaccine, in other words, not come out with a vaccine until just after the election. That's because of what I did with favored nations and these other elements. Instead of their original plan to assess the data in October, so they were going to come out in October, but they decided to delay it because of what I'm doing, which is fine with me because, frankly, this is just a very big thing, a very big thing. What I'm doing here, I don't know if anyone's going to appreciate it. These people can't even believe it. Alex, even you can't believe it, can you? Look at you. So they waited and waited and waited, and they thought they'd come out with it a few days after the election. And it would have probably had an impact. Who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have.
So Donald Trump, of course, as always, the ultimate victim. complaining that he doesn't get appreciation. No one has been treated less fairly than Donald Trump in the world, in the history of the world, of any president in history, if you believe his perspective. And he almost kind of backhandedly admits that he lost, saying, if the vaccine had been approved before the election, I might have won. But of course, he's also trying to convince us that he did win. So he has to back up and say, well, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't have had an impact. And then lastly, as Seema Verma wraps up, she's just horrible. She's been a part of Donald Trump's coronavirus task force for a while. After Seema Verma wraps up, Donald Trump just kind of slowly slinking off after waving to someone in the audience without even saying the press briefing is over on a microphone, naturally not taking a single question.
Success over the last 4 years is a testimony to that mentality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Thank you.
The election was 3 weeks ago. Joe Biden has selected a Treasury Secretary who he says he will tell us sometime around Thanksgiving. He selected a Chief of Staff. He's selected a Secretary of State, a National Security Advisor, an Ambassador to the United Nations. Joe Biden has created and has started meeting with a coronavirus task force, and he's been speaking to governors about what are we going to do in terms of masks, in terms of the virus, in terms of all of this. And meanwhile, Donald Trump and his administration still have not even acknowledged, hey, we had an election. You aren't going to be president anymore in 8.5 weeks. They still have not acknowledged that. Truly bizarre times that we are living through. I am very much looking forward to, as I said earlier in our discussion about foreign policy and Joe Biden choosing his Secretary of State. I really am looking forward to getting back to more substantive policy discussion once we can get rid of this menace. And we are 8.5 weeks from it. One of our sponsors is Four Sigmatic, the company best known for their delicious mushroom coffee. They're having a huge short-lasting Black Friday sale right now when you use my link, which gives you up to 50% off. Four Sigmatic's mushroom coffee is organic, fair trade, single origin Arabica coffee with both lion's mane and chaga mushrooms. Chaga mushrooms have actually been shown to have potential in supporting the immune system in peer-reviewed studies. I've been drinking Four Sigmatic coffee lately. It tastes nothing like mushrooms. It just tastes like delicious coffee. It's really easy on the stomach, doesn't give you a jittery feeling or a midday crash. And if you try it yourself, you will see why they have over 20,000 five-star reviews. And best of all, if you don't love it, you'll get all your money back because they stand behind their product. You really have nothing to lose by giving it a try. Their incredible Black Friday sale is offering you up to 50% off plus an additional 10% off sale items, but only when you go to foursigmatic.com/Pakman. The link is right underneath this video.